Ole's still smiling there as he is answering the questions, chaps. Welcome, both.
Thank you.
Delighted to have you both along. So the situation where he's at right now, talking about blatant lies. Yes, there is always speculation. Yes, there is always debate and conjecture around the positions of managers. But are we seeing a manager there that understands, obviously, it's a ginormous job, a huge job, the juggernaut that is Manchester United. The position that he's in, with the players that he's got, how much time has he got?
Well, I mean, obviously, from the point of view of the inconsistency, the results have been, poor, and the way the team have played, just within one match. I was at the Sheffield United game, and first half was awful for Manchester United, and to see Ole and his coaching staff change the shape to match Sheffield, I thought, what are you doing against Sheffield United to do that? They've been playing that way all season, Sheffield United, and McTominay's a big loss for them in that holding midfield position, but to change your whole team for that purpose, I think when you're a team like Manchester United, is a big sign of a team that's in trouble, that managers, I think, tend to roll the dice a bit, think, well, if we shore up the defence, clearly there's a huge problem with the defence, let's stick 3 defenders in there, but my goodness, it didn't pay off at all.
But then on the flip side, he did make a change, didn't he, and got back into the game, and against a Sheffield United team that showed against my former side how good they are, and against a lot of teams, they were unlucky to lose to Liverpool, put in some brilliant performances. They went and scored 3 goals, but then didn't see the game out. So there'll be some positives to take from the game. I think that it all depends on the owners as well. So I'm sure that when, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer sat down with the owners, right, we're bringing in young players, Daniel James, fantastic signing, Wan-Bissaka, you went and got Maguire. But then the likes of Brandon Williams, Mason Greenwood, they're coming through, the youngsters he played in Europe. So what are we doing? Are we having a transition? If we are, but it's very hard to get that time at Manchester United.
That's where the owners or the board need to say that. They need to come out and say that. If, Mourinho had a better points ratio than him, last 35 games, Mourinho's 64 points to Ole's 58 points. But you look at Mourinho, and he's been brought in now at Spurs for one purpose, that's to win things. That was the requirement at Manchester United. He did that, not to the level they would have expected, but he won trophies at Manchester United. Whereas for Ole, it should be, if he gets good support from the board and the ownership, then you can say, right, well, this is a bit of a rebuild, and we're looking to develop young players and get the identity back of the club.
And you talk about rebuild, January's coming. So they even need to come out with a statement, because if he's going to try and attract players, because they do need players, if you're going to try and attract them. Also, you see this about these 2 games coming, and he's going to lose his job. The bit that worries me is Pogba's coming back to fitness as well. So will all the song and dance be happening again, all that noise around Pogba, which happens every window, and is he, discontent? Mourinho as well, coming into town. There's so much coming on, and I just feel that tomorrow night will be a massive, massive game for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but he does need to get results. But will he get given the time, as you say, the juggernaut that is Manchester United?
Will he, the sense of where he's at in relation to the players and having to come out and address rumours such as this and blatant lies, as he calls it, from a playing point of view, does that take pressure off the players? Does it make the players feel uneasy? Does it allow them to go and express themselves? Are they going to play within themselves tomorrow night?
I think you need to feel secure as a player with your coach. You need, we've all been in situations where coaches have been rumoured to be fired, run of form's not good. You're looking around the dressing room for who are those players that are going to get him out of that problem. And Matt said it earlier, you've got 2 sides of the Jekyll and Hyde of Manchester United at the moment. You've got the creativity, which is phenomenal. That second half against Sheffield United, it was chaos. The shape changed, everything changed about it. They threw on a load of different sort of creative players, and it nearly paid off for them. But you can't have that and then have the distraction of the uncertainty. So I understand why clubs and boards come out and back the manager, because they're trying to say, look, we're behind him. This is not going to, nothing's going to happen. We're not going to react to the poor form. But ultimately, they have to improve their form. They have to find a way, and that's between the coach and the players, of creating some security. There's nothing worse as a football player going onto the pitch feeling vulnerable, and I see that with that back 4. I think they've got a decent back 4. They've got, you could argue who you put alongside, Maguire as the left-sided centre back, and Wan-Bissaka. Who's your left back? Who's your other centre half? You've got one of the world's best goalkeepers historically,
who signed a long deal as well.
So you've got a decent back 4 there, but they need support as well. So you've got to find a way of saying, right, we're going to lock this team down a little bit. We're going to be a bit more defensively secure in order to then build confidence within the team. And I think that's how you do it. I don't think it's just about going and necessarily buying new players or just looking at the front end of the pitch and saying, well, we've got to score 5 or 6 goals every game. You've got to find a way of creating that security.
And I think the quicker Pochettino takes a job, that will take some pressure off.
That shadow does loom large, doesn't it?
Of course it does, because you see what he did at Tottenham Hotspur. You know, he made players better, he brought them through, got them into the top 4, you know, season in, season out, which is what Manchester United need. And you look at the figures that are getting released by Manchester United, that's a massive thing, the financial figures. So who is at the helm of that club? That would be one of the reasons that they had the likes of Van Gaal and Mourinho in, because that then gives Manchester United that status. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a legend of the club. We can't deny that. Maybe that's why he's getting a little bit more time. But if that is a journey and what he's been tasked to do, then you have to back him. But at the same time, well, Pochettino is there with his credentials, even though he hasn't won anything with what he's done. But there's a lot of people that will be, wanting his signature, if you like. But that is going to loom large, and the next few games are very, very big for Man United.
That's my big concern, though, is that if there's a slight change in direction and emphasis at Manchester United, as there has been, I think, to an extent at Chelsea, with Frank Lampard coming in, the transfer ban obviously has an impact. But there's an identity at that club now at Chelsea, you know, only since the summer, about, OK, developing young players, helping them into the team. The team is exciting. So Frank has used that made that a positive situation with the backing of the club at Chelsea. And at Manchester United, there's nobody directing the way the club is sort of performing. And I think that's where there's a big void, unless they've got people running the club with a really clear identity and there's a recruitment programme and policy that fits that, and that's aligned with the coach, whoever that coach is, any team's going to struggle, I think, because you switch identities almost as you switch manager. And if that's not defined structurally, then I think you're going to have problems.
You mentioned the comparison between Ole and Jose Mourinho. Does that put that into even sharper focus?
Absolutely.
When Jose came out and said it was one of his greatest achievements as a manager, you mentioned the final 35 Premier League games. Does that, I mean, I'm not saying for one second Jose sat there gloating about this particular set of statistics, but is it not necessarily careful what you wish for, but just look at how tough that job is and how good a job his predecessor did? Well,
yeah, I mean, I think it is a tough job because it's a team that has struggled to regain its identity since Sir Alex Ferguson left, and it's not just him going; it's the backroom staff, the changes. Then you've got the disconnect, I think, between the identity of how Manchester United was. People then suddenly going, well, we've got to recreate that, but things have moved on. So it's how much you've got to unpick before you start building again. But I still don't feel that them as a club at the moment have unpicked all the stuff they need to then start to build some momentum and become a really successful team.
And they've got to be careful, though, how long they stay out the top 4, because the longer they're out the top 4, the harder it is. You saw Liverpool took a long time to get back into the top 4 and really competing because they won't attract the
Is
top
it a vicious
players.
circle, though? I mean, if you don't get in the top 4, you don't attract the type of players, but the players that get you in the top 4 don't come to a team that isn't in the top 4.
Or you pay over the odds, and then Sanchez, it didn't happen for him. Lukaku, it didn't happen for him, but they go away and then perform in other clubs better. So that will be an issue, that will be a concern. But totally what Graham says, you have to have an identity of what you're doing. So, but what I would say is that Pochettino is, because he's so proven, is why people will be looking at him and the style and the brand. I know it sort of came to a sort of an end at Tottenham, but he still has a very, very high, if you like, high cred and the way he got those young players playing, and I know Dele Alli had faded a little bit, but still so many young players. Winks, Harry Kane, he's the one who really, really brought him through. So if they are going on that model, they might be looking at the likes of Rashford, McTominay, everybody else, and thinking he can make them better. But if they are going to make the decision, I believe they need to do it quickly. Because of the January window coming in, just get away rid of this uncertainty, because that affects your staff, like Graham says, affects the players and everybody else.
Is it not only January coming up, as in the transfer window in January, but if you look at games coming up, I mean, hypothetically, if they were to make a change at the very, very top, I mean, a lot of what we see about the potential of a new manager coming in and the games that he might have ahead of him, I mean, it's not an easy run by any stretch of the imagination at all, is it?
Tottenham and Manchester City difficult, but they're those 2 games. But after that, then you would say that there's maybe a bit of time to bed in and get your ideas across and experiment a little, because obviously Alkmaar, but the Everton aren't in fantastic form. Colchester in the League Cup, and then and Watford. So that might be the time. That's probably maybe why they're saying those 2 games. Plus those Tottenham and Manchester City games are very, very difficult. And it's going to, whoever it is trying to put a bit of extra pressure on Solskjaer. And look, he's trying to do his job to the best of his ability, and he doesn't need those distractions.
I mean, it must be so. I mean, having the clubs that he's been involved with, Solskjaer, and where he's at now in his management career, is there a kind of a hard-nosed stance to this, Graham, where you could kind of say, well, that's the territory of what that football club is?
Absolutely.
It will constantly throw up conjecture, opinions, debate, and it'll also be a position which will be scrutinised so very, very much, because we're not talking about a club whose standards are here. They were there, and now they're not.
No, that's right. And people will always use that huge success and the history of the club as a reference point. And you know, for me as somebody who, you know, I've no connection with Manchester United whatsoever, but I want to see Manchester United doing well as a team. It's good for the Premier League. And I have to say, I go up there a lot in the commentary work that I do, and the fans have been absolutely incredible. They've supported the atmosphere gets a bit flat, obviously, when the team aren't playing particularly well, but they've not turned on him at all, and they've supported the club through the last sort of few years. And I think they've been a credit in a sense.
That is a massive point, because I think even with Arsene Wenger at Arsenal, and then with Emery, the last game he was there, when the crowd turn and stop turning up, that is another problem that can heap the pressure on. So the fact that the United fans have brought into it, they are turning up, that is huge. It really, really is. But you also think Manchester United, that we've all grown up with, it is the biggest, it's probably the biggest club in the world. And they just wonder about, you know, as generations come through, if it goes too long without them winning, do then Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, whatever, start to take that mantle a little.
And the difficulty is that if you're standing still, you're actually going backwards, because the clubs around you are constantly trying to improve. They're refining all the time. We see the dominance of Manchester City and Liverpool at the moment in the way they're playing, the identities that they have. Yeah. You know, we could all sit here and go immediately, if you talk about Manchester City and Liverpool, we could come up with 3 out of 5, maybe 4 out of 5 of the things that sort of identify them as football teams and clubs. And I think for the moment at Manchester United, Ole's going to be judged clearly on the next couple of games, and he's going to have to use and get some sort of know-how of how to manage through, you know, navigate through those matches.
But Klopp took time, didn't he?
It did take time, yeah. But Ole's, you know, he's had plenty of time, I think, now to really put an imprint on that team. This is who I am as a coach. This is how I play. And this is to the players, you've got to fit into this. And the problem for me is that, again, big players like Pogba, you've had Lukaku go, Matic isn't around at all. He was a huge player over the last sort of 10 years probably. And so there's lots of things happening at once. Luke Shaw's not been able to really establish himself as the left back. There's lots of things that are happening there. That happens at other clubs as well. You add on top of that the seeming lack of real identity and direction, and then you end up with a bit of a perfect storm. So a massive job that we're discussing at Manchester United becomes even bigger, because you haven't got all the tools to be able to use to at least survive.